On the first aspect of this ratification process we are engaged in, I don't see immediate sort of impact because, of course, because of the delays embedded in the EU. Of course, the focus was how we can gain ratification from other countries who don't have that complex process at 27 or 28. So I think on this part doesn't have such an impact. And so we have to pursue Japan, South Africa, India, Brazil to make the big bulk of emissions embedded in the what could be help the entry into force. And I think this is going reasonably well. Of course, may not be able to do that by Marrakesh, even if we, of course, we can aim at that. But I think we could advance seriously enough to, still it's possibility to have this by the end of the year. So I think the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is really doing the job, the French presidency is doing the job, certainly the Moroccan presidency. And so, and many governments, the US government is doing it and many others. So I think EU Commission now, so in a way the movement is there, doesn't have a direct impact. It has of course a direct impact on the EU. And that depends on the speed in which the other members can make a decision on the bubble. And then on the ratification process, if they would like to distance their ratification instrument from the burden sharing. And still, for me, it's a very big question mark. We could go along. Some countries, like Hungary or others, accepted the idea, wanted the idea that you can ratify without knowing about what is a burden sharing, which I think cannot be solved by this year, evidently. But then, so that's a big question mark of the impact of Brexit. Then, of course, UK has been a powerful force in the climate discussions. A very ambitious climate policy at home, a very clear pathway, carbon budget, a very good set of institutions. And so that's a loss, that's a big loss in how this can be in a way reconciled with a continuing conversation, sharing objectives like Switzerland is doing with EU on climate, or even Norway, but we should hope for more than that from the UK, but that of course a big question mark.
It seems funny because particularly having covered quite a few of these UN conferences, it seems climate change is almost one of the few areas where Britain proudly took part in European efforts and sort of was really pushing the fact that this is an EU effort. I mean, the lead negotiator is or one of the lead negotiators is from the UK, and you appointed Amber Rudd as one of the key ministers in Paris for the Paris Agreement. I mean, I know it's difficult now because there's so much up in the air, but what kind of relationship on climate do you think you'd like to see moving forward?
What is, of course, very important, I think Amber Rudd said that this morning, I was not listening to her because I have another meeting, that climate policy should be and has to keep being a very important feature of the policy here. So the condition number one is to have UK delivering on its own targets, which are really well framed, and again with this institutional setting, which was, I think, very progressive. If this is there, many things can be kept open in the discussion with EU. That is the second, but there are many other chapters, ODA, orientation, the participation of UK on the boards of the major financial institutions for climate, like World Bank, on other development agencies and multilateral development banks. So this could be in a way relatively independent because it could be a soft, like a soft law, soft power discussion, meaning can we align objectives outside? I don't see any impossibility of doing it, whatever the formal relationship are with EU. So the alignment of EU policies on climate can survive to this, in my view, but of course it depends entirely of the orientation of the next government in UK. But you have a very, very good base in terms of knowledge, in terms of, again, organization, in terms of academia, business. So there is here a very lively context and scene where just this business summit here, you see a number of US or UK companies, a number of investors that are really willing to do in that direction. So in a way, this will not disappear. So we can, I think, use it in this strategy discussion on the outside.
Do you think that so we're going to have maybe 2 years, 3 years of negotiations over the UK's future. Do you anticipate the EU ratifying the Paris deal bit before then? I mean, do you think it will just have to go ahead and accelerate and develop its own effort-sharing sort of plan while that is going on?
If we take seriously the decision of the UK citizen, we have to go in this way, meaning our target of 40% by 2030, how we produce it without UK. But anyway, it's not a drama either, because anyway, every country has to make an effort at the end of the day. So, but yes, if we would have EU ratify before the finalization of the negotiation, we have to find a way. Meaning, you're right, organizing a burden sharing without UK. But again, that's a very big question mark.
And you mentioned Norway, or at least a lot of people have mentioned Norway. Do you think that could be a model for climate cooperation? Norway wants to be part of the EU's effort sharing for 2030. It is separate from the EU in some respects. Is that, I know it's early to say, but is that a potential model where you could see the UK working closely and maintaining some of its links?
I understand that is one of the options, even if there is not seem to have a very prepared plan, to say the less. So probably yes, it's one of options. You have what do you have? Norway, Switzerland has a little bit different mode of association, and this could be a format, meaning the burden sharing, or at least the bubble would expand. But we have to remind that legally, it's an entity called EU who ratify and deposit its instrument of ratification, who has a target and, of course, obligations. So this has to be combined. You can have a soft coordination of this, but it's about even other elements, R&D policies and innovation policy, business agreement, exchange of knowledge. Of course, we had a framework before. It's a totally different one. So that's the uncertainty part. But yes, Norway could be a model. It's not the strongest discussion model, because you see Norway on one side is, of course, very active in funding environment globally, trying to be carbon neutral. But of course, it's very different from the integration within EU ETS, for example.